Alright, thank you, Ma'am Kanape. Hello, audience, are you still there? Okay, so we're hoping that you are having some fun here in our discussion. So take note that we still have 3 more speakers. Okay, and first of this 3 will be
our next reporter is a teacher who loves to watch TV and to listen to music. Now, she's already 45, but still eager to teach and mold the future of students. She is a teacher from Balibago Integrated School, and she believes that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Our next speaker, Ma'am Maria Elena Segundo.
Classmates, here is my report. I am Maria Elena Segundo, a member of Group 6. The concept of the language sign and related notions. The 3 major insights pertaining to the language sign are the following. The naive idea that Saussure stood at the beginning of a conception of language as a system of signs has to be abandoned. Second, Saussure's concept of the language sign, and particularly his affirmations about the arbitrariness of the sign and the questions of relative motivation, have frequently been misinterpreted. And the last one, the abundance of publications during the past 2 decades devoted to the language sign and related notions makes it impossible to discuss. So this simply means that some of the ideas or theories of Ferdinand de Saussure were questioned by other linguists. Okay, and that will be further explained by some of our group mates later. Next, Saussure comes to enunciate what has become for a modern audience the most influential principle of his linguistic theory, that the relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary. Let us first define what arbitrary is. When we speak of arbitrary, it is subject to individual will or judgment without restriction. Or it can mean based on chance rather than being planned or based on reason. Language is arbitrary. By the arbitrariness of language, we mean there is no inherent or logical relation or similarity between any given feature of language and its meaning. That is entirely arbitrary. That there is no direct necessary connection between the nature of things or ideas language. And Ferdinand de Saussure made mention of the difference, or he explained what is meant by arbitrary in this sign, because he proposed the theory in semiology or semiotics. Next, semiotics is defined as the study of signs and symbols and their interpretation. Sometimes semiotics is also known as semiology, but in some references, these semiotics and semiology are quite different. Semiotics is a system of thought which explicitly seeks to mediate between the natural environment and its perception in consciousness, whereas semiology, on the other hand, limits itself to the intralinguistical mental sphere cut off from experiential world. Nevertheless, both semiotics and semiology deals with signs, and that is what Ferdinand de Saussure is famous for, the theory of sign languages. Now, I have here a simple representation of why Ferdinand de Saussure made mention that language, or the word signifier and signified, is arbitrary. Take a look at the picture. So, when we speak of signifier, it means the physical existence. It may be the sound, word, or image. So as you can see, we have here the image of an apple. So a signifier, it could simply mean the spelling of the word apple, A-P-P-L-E, or the sound apple, and that is a signifier. Now, for the word signified, of course, apple means fruit or freshness, healthy, temptation. Perhaps you have the idea why this apple is considered as temptation, because it was mentioned in the Bible during the time of Adam and Eve. It could mean teacher's pet, because there is an idiom, apple of the eye, which means favorite. And it could also mean computer, for the brand name or the apple. So, signifier plus signified is equal to sign. So, there you can form the object or the thing apple. Another one. Another example is rose. So, as signifier, rose could simply mean R-O-S-E, or the sound rose. But for signified, it could mean a flower. Or for others, it could mean passion. So, signified means mental concept. It depends on how a person perceives the idea regarding the signifier. There is also some comparison wherein signifier is compared to connotation and signified as denotation. Because as we can see in this picture, signifier, there is the suggestion of a word, gesture, image, sound, or pattern that refers to a meaning. Example, in this picture, we have the gun, and the hand gesture are the signifiers. So for the signified, the idea or interpretation of what the signifier is relating to. Therefore, makes the signified the image of a gun is the signified from the word gun or the hand sign. And connotation is the feelings or ideas and cultural meaning that is associated with a word or object. The secondary or non-literal meaning of the word, example, death is associated with gun. So for denotation, the primary or literal meaning of a word and not the feeling or ideas the word conjures up, the image of gun is denotated from two signifiers. Therefore, all languages can be assumed to be arbitrary, at least in this linguistic definition of the word, despite occasional iconic characteristics. Instead of universal rules and uniformity, then language relies on associations of word meanings deriving from cultural inventions. This is because the relationship between the signifier and the signified is sometimes arbitrary. For example, the word signifier, pain, has the meaning hurt, agony, or discomfort. But in French, it refers to a loaf of bread. Signs can be classified into three groups based on this relationship between the signifier and the signified. As we have studied before, there are times wherein a hand gesture is different from others, or the word is different from another word. For another example of the signifier and signified is the word cool. For signifier, when we speak of cool, it's simply the letters C-O-O-L, or the idea cool. But for signified, it could mean temperature, or for others, it could mean stylish, popular, or easy to go along with. As Ferdinand de Saussure made mention, it may mean differently from others. What I conceptualize regarding the certain signifier may be different from yours. That is signifier. This principle of arbitrariness of the linguistic sign was not original conception. Aristotle had noted that there can be no natural connection between the sound of any language and the things signified. In Plato's Cratylus, Hermogenes urged Socrates to accept that whatever name you give to a thing is its right name. And if you give up that name and change it for another, the later name is no less correct than the earlier, just as we change the name of our servants. For I think no name belongs to particular thing by nature. So this is what is meant by the previous slide that I showed you, that there are times wherein Ferdinand de Saussure has been criticized by others. And one of those is that the idea of sign as arbitrary is not his original theory, according to some. That which we call a rose by another name would smell as sweet, as Shakespeare put it. While the notion of the arbitrariness of language was not new, but the emphasis which Saussure gave it can be seen as original contribution, particularly in the context of a theory which bracketed the referent. Note that although Saussure prioritized speech, he also stressed that the signs used in writing are arbitrary. The letter T, for instance, has no connection with the sound it denotes. So in most cases, we can always find, or we can always see that really language is arbitrary according to Ferdinand de Saussure. And that ends my report. Thank you and good day.